There is something deeply broken with the way we build homes today. In 1986, researchers studying a traditional Icelandic peat house during winter recorded indoor temperatures of 58 degrees Fahrenheit, while outside it was -40. There was no furnace, no central heating, no electricity, just thick walls made of stacked turf and stone, and a small fire that burned for only a few hours each day. The house stayed warm for over 3 days after the last fire went out. Families lived in these homes for generations, surviving Arctic winters that would kill a modern family in hours. Compare that to today. When your power goes out during a winter storm, your expensive, code-compliant home drops below freezing in less than 6 hours. Your pipes burst. Your family huddles under blankets. The house becomes uninhabitable before morning. How is this possible? How did people survive extreme cold in buildings made of dirt and grass, while your modern home with spray foam insulation and advanced heating systems becomes a death trap the moment the grid fails? Before we dive deeper, drop a comment below. Have you ever dealt with a blackout in winter? How long did your house stay warm? An hour? 6 hours? Or could you see your breath after 30 minutes? Let us know, because what you're about to learn will change how you look at every modern building. Let's rewind to 2007. A research team at the University of Iceland ran an experiment. They took 2 structures, roughly 400 square feet each. The first was a reconstructed peat house, built the old way. Walls of stacked turf blocks, 3 to 4 feet thick, cut from local bogs. Tiny windows, barely 12 by 18 inches. No modern insulation, no vapor barrier, no fiberglass. The second was a modern insulated home, built to current standards. R30 insulation, vapor barriers, energy-efficient windows. On paper, the modern house was miles ahead. Both were placed in the same spot. Outside temperature, -15 degrees. Both were heated to 68 degrees. Then they cut all heat. The modern house dropped to 32 degrees in 9 hours. The peat house? After 48 hours, it was still 56 degrees inside. After 4 full days without any heat, it was still 48 degrees, well above freezing. The modern house became a life-threatening icebox. The peat house stayed survivable. Why? A modern engineer might say that's impossible. The peat wall only has an R value around 8 to 10. The modern house has R30. Higher R value means better insulation, right? So the modern house should win. But R value only measures one thing: heat transfer in a steady state. It completely ignores thermal mass. And thermal mass is the game changer. A peat wall 3 feet thick weighs over 60 pounds per square foot. Peat can hold twice as much heat as concrete, pound for pound. When you heat a peat house, you're not just warming the air, you're charging a massive battery. The heat from your fire soaks into those thick walls. The peat absorbs it and stores it deep in its dense structure. Once those walls are warm, they radiate that heat back into the room for days. Researchers testing old peat houses in the Faroe Islands in 2003 found that walls stayed warm to the touch over 72 hours after the last fire, keeping indoor temps 30 to 40 degrees above outside air. The modern house? The walls are a sandwich. Half-inch drywall, plastic vapor barrier, fiberglass batting, thin siding. The whole thing weighs maybe 8 pounds per square foot. There's zero mass to store heat. The insulation slows heat loss, but it stores nothing. As soon as the furnace quits, the heat in the air bleeds out through tiny leaks and especially through the windows. And because modern stick framing has no mass, there's no reserve to keep you warm. Peat builders understood this. They cut peat blocks from bogs where the material had compressed for centuries. Dense, heavy blocks almost like stone, but way better at storing heat. The blocks were cut in spring, dried through summer, and built into walls in fall. Each block fit carefully to the one below. The walls were solid mass, inside to outside. The thickness wasn't just insulation, it was heat storage. It takes over 24 hours for outside cold to push through a 3-foot peat wall. By then, you've rebuilt your fire. The house acts like a battery, keeping temps stable for days. But the walls weren't the only thermal mass. The roofs were just as important. Modern homes use thin asphalt shingles over plywood and maybe some fiberglass insulation in the attic. Total weight, maybe 5 to 7 pounds per square foot. Heat rises, and in a modern house, it escapes right through that thin roof assembly faster than anywhere else. Your attic insulation slows it down, but there's no mass to hold the heat. Peat houses had living roofs. Thick layers of sod and grass, sometimes 2 feet deep, laid over birch bark or wooden planks. A single square foot of sod roof weighed 40 to 60 pounds. That's enormous thermal mass right above your head, exactly where rising heat wants to escape. When the fire warmed the house, that heat rose and soaked into the sod roof. The grass and soil absorbed it and held it, then slowly radiated it back down into the living space for hours after the fire died. It was like having a heated blanket covering your entire house from above. The sod roofs did something else too. The living grass roots and soil created a continuous, flexible layer that sealed gaps and moved with the structure as it settled. Modern roofs have thousands of potential leak points. Every shingle edge, every nail hole, every valley and ridge. Sod roofs sealed themselves. The roots knitted together into a mat that blocked wind and water while still allowing moisture vapor to escape. And in summer, the grass actually grew, creating a living insulation layer that kept the house cool. In winter, the dense compressed sod and root mass held heat like a thick blanket. Researchers studying traditional Icelandic turf houses found that sod roofs contributed up to 30% of the building's total thermal mass. When they measured heat retention, houses with intact sod roofs stayed warm significantly longer than those where the sod had been replaced with modern materials. The combination of massive walls and a massive roof created a complete thermal envelope that trapped and held heat from all directions. But mass alone isn't enough. The next secret is windows. Walk through any modern house and you'll find huge windows everywhere. Floor-to-ceiling glass, walls of windows, sliding doors, big bedroom windows. Every room designed for natural light and views. It might look fancy, but it's a thermal disaster. Even the best triple pane window has an R value around 7. Your insulated wall is R20 to R30. Every square foot of window loses heat 3 to 4 times faster than your walls. When you add up total heat loss in a modern home, windows account for 25 to 35%, even though they're only 15 to 20% of the wall area. Peat houses had tiny windows, often just 12 by 18 inches. Some had no windows at all, just the door and a smoke hole for light. This wasn't because glass was expensive, though it was. It was because builders knew every opening bled heat. A small window could be shuttered at night with thick boards or covered with oiled skins that let in some light but kept heat in. The openings were set deep in the thick walls, creating a tunnel that blocked wind and reduced heat loss. When archaeologists studied 11th century peat houses in Iceland, window openings were less than 2% of wall area. But modern homes? 15 to 25%. You've removed a quarter of your insulation and replaced it with glass that bleeds heat non-stop. The third difference is air tightness, but not how you think. Modern codes obsess over air sealing, plastic vapor barriers, caulking, house wrap. But these systems fail all the time. Every outlet, light fixture, pipe, and wall joint is a leak point. Blower door tests show the average modern home has leaks equal to leaving a 20 by 20 inch window wide open. That's not exaggeration. Add up all the tiny gaps around outlets, baseboards, and holes, and that's what you get. Cold air pours through 24/7, and your furnace works overtime trying to keep up. Peat houses got real air tightness through mass and simplicity. The thick walls had almost no holes, no outlets, no recessed lights, no hidden air channels. The peat blocks were cut to fit tight, and the fibrous nature of peat meant blocks pressed together and sealed naturally. Any gaps were filled with more peat or moss. The sod roof pressed down on the walls with its weight, compressing everything tighter over time. The result was a truly sealed home. When Norwegian scientists tested 18th century peat houses with modern equipment, They found air leakage lower than today's passive house standard, the strictest efficiency rating in modern construction. These primitive buildings built with hand tools beat modern tech. Then there's moisture. Modern homes try to seal moisture out with vapor barriers and waterproof wraps, creating a sealed box. This works until it doesn't. When moisture gets into walls, through defects or just over time, it gets trapped. That trapped moisture condenses on cold surfaces, perfect for mold and rot. Your modern wall is designed to fail if anything goes wrong. Peat walls breathe. Peat absorbs moisture when humidity is high and releases it when it's dry. This naturally regulates humidity without fans or dehumidifiers. Better yet, peat walls can get wet and dry out without damage. If water gets in during a storm, it's absorbed and spread through the wall, then slowly dries out. No hidden cavity where moisture builds up and causes rot. The whole wall handles moisture. The sod roof did the same thing. Grass and soil naturally absorb and release moisture, keeping the roof structure dry while letting vapor escape. Studies of peat houses in Scotland found indoor humidity stayed stable year-round, between 40 and 60%, the ideal range for comfort and health, with no mechanical control. The fifth difference is heating. Modern homes use forced air. Heat air, blow it around. Try to keep every room the same temp. This is stupid physics. Hot air rises, so you get a hot ceiling and cold floor. The system runs constantly because air doesn't hold much heat. The second the furnace stops, warmth disappears. Peat houses used radiant heat from a central fire or stone hearth. The fire heated the stones and walls directly. Those massive surfaces radiated heat to people and objects, not the air. The heat rose and soaked into the sod roof, which radiated it back down. Radiant heat is way more efficient because you feel warm even when air temp is lower. You can be comfortable at 60 degrees with warm walls, while a forced air house at 68 with cold walls feels chilly. So why did we abandon a building method that worked for over 1,000 years and beat modern construction in the coldest climates? 3 reasons: speed, cost, cheap energy. After World War II, the building industry rebuilt around factory materials: lumber, drywall, fiberglass, parts that could go together fast with unskilled labour. Peat construction needed local materials, specialised knowledge, and lots of time. You couldn't make peat blocks in a factory and ship them. You had to cut them from local bogs, which meant every area needed people who knew how to find good peat, cut it right, and build with it. The post-war boom needed millions of homes, fast. Stick framing could be taught in weeks and built quick. Developers bought materials in bulk and built whole neighbourhoods with cheap labour. Peat construction couldn't scale. So a whole building tradition that kept people alive in the harshest climates got abandoned, not because it didn't work, but because it didn't fit the factory model. The knowledge died in one generation. The energy industry played a part too. Peat houses used almost no fuel because the mass did the work. Modern houses need constant energy, creating guaranteed customers for utilities and fuel companies. A population in massive homes that barely need heat doesn't generate profit. Intentional or not, the shift to energy-dependent housing created a permanent money stream. And then there's windows. Big windows became a selling point. Buyers wanted views and light, and energy was cheap enough that efficiency didn't matter. We stopped building for survival and started building for looks and low cost. We built houses that only work with constant power. Cut the line, they die. So what do you do if you want the toughness and efficiency of a peat house today? You probably won't start building with actual peat. It's hard to source and codes won't allow it, but you can use the same principles. First, get thermal mass. If you're building new, look at insulated concrete forms, rammed earth, or thick stone or brick walls instead of stick framing. They cost more upfront but work way better long term. If you have an existing home, add mass where you can. A masonry fireplace, stone or tile floors over concrete, even interior brick or stone walls add heat storage that smooths temps and cuts heating needs. Second, fix air leaks for real. not just code minimum. Hire someone who can do blower door testing and infrared imaging to find where your house actually leaks, then seal it right. Focus on big holes, attic access, chimney chases, rim joists, pipe holes. These matter way more than cork around windows. Third, rethink windows. If you're building or renovating, don't max out glass. Smaller windows placed smart give enough light while keeping heat in. For existing homes, get the best windows you can afford and consider shutters you can close at night. Heavy shades, storm panels, or wood shutters can cut window heat loss by half when closed. Do this every winter night and you'll cut heating costs and stay way warmer during outages. Fourth, go radiant heat instead of forced air. Radiant floors, water or electric, heat the floor mass, which radiates warmth through the space. Same effect as warm peat walls. You're comfortable at lower air temps, use less energy, and keep warmth way longer during outages. If floors aren't doable, a masonry heater or good wood stove heats by radiation and charges interior mass like an old hearth. Fifth, set up backup that doesn't need the grid. A wood stove or masonry heater keeps you alive during long outages. Even a small stove in a massive home can keep livable temps indefinitely. Add shutters for windows, acting like movable insulation at night, just like peat house people used boards and skins to cut heat loss through small openings. The medieval Icelander building his peat house wasn't stupid. He used what he had, methods refined over generations, and they worked for centuries. Modern industry doesn't care about your safety or long-term toughness. It cares about fast builds and energy sales that profit forever. We've lost the knowledge of how to build shelter that works in extreme cold without outside help. But that knowledge is still around. It's in old buildings, historical records, and proven by modern science. The question is whether we'll take it back and use principles that put survival over convenience and real performance over marketing. If this changes how you think about your home, hit subscribe. We're digging up the practical wisdom modern industries buried because it threatens their profits. The skills that kept families alive through Arctic winters weren't magic. It was physics done right. That science hasn't changed. We just forgot how to use it.